Welcome to the Goalie Hacks Podcast, the show dedicated to providing elite tips, hacks, and strategies to take your game to the next level, where we help you become an elite goaltender, one hack at a time. And now, here's your host, Mike Santaguida.
Bang, bang. What is up, guys? And welcome back to episode 4 of the show. Just want to say I'm so grateful for this opportunity to speak with you guys and build this community. If you guys haven't listened to my first episode yet about my story, go check it out. Let's get to know each other a bit. And feel free to hit me up on Instagram after this episode. I'm super active on social, although I don't post every day to my page. I post to my story really often, and I love connecting with everyone. I engage an incredible amount, and I've easily talked to probably a few thousand people since coming online a few months ago, and I honestly just have so much fun talking with you guys, chatting with like-minded individuals. So if you need any help at all, or if you just want to say hi, hit me up after the show. I'd love to hear from you guys and connect. Today, Zach and I absolutely nailed this talk, and it was such an incredible conversation to have with one of the most winning goaltenders of our generation. I couldn't be more honored to have him on today, so definitely take notes and pay attention, guys, because there's a lot to take from our first active professional goaltender. I'm proud today to announce a new sponsorship on the show from the IQ Goalie E-Digest. I'm personally an annual subscriber of the product, and if you're looking to join many pro goalies and coaches around the world and learning about the sports science related to goaltending that can easily be downloaded to your phone, this is for you. For just a few bucks a month, which works out to much less American, the monthly digest contains 5 easy-to-read articles reporting on and reviewing sports science concepts related to goaltending and how to use them to your advantage. So all the articles are referenced and sourced. It's really good stuff from scientific studies, and most of them contain interviews with the researchers themselves. So today, we're offering a promotion of 20% off if you use the code HACKS in all caps, HACKS, at checkout. Visit iqgoalie.com or find them on Instagram at IQ_goalie for more details. Shout out to our other sponsor, NeuroTracker, and if you guys haven't heard of NeuroTracker yet, we have an awesome deal for you guys today. But if you haven't, you very likely will soon. I stumbled upon this product about 6 years ago, and it's elevated my game enormously. I think if you're looking for that next edge, NeuroTracker is the best option athletes have right now, especially in a time like this where we're stuck inside. You know, it's quoted by the New York Times as having grown into the best brain training game in sports, and it's used by athletes in every major sport league around the world. It's just awesome. So to kick off our sponsorship, we're giving away 2 subscriptions to the new NTX product, not available to the public yet. So stick around to the end of the show to get the details on how to enter. But also, if you guys sign up for the current NeuroTracker system right now, you will be grandfathered into the new product, the NeuroTracker X, at the same price before it goes up in a month. So if you're looking to support the show and get better in these hard times, if you're looking to save money, just hit me up on my DMs on Instagram after you listen to the show to get more information on how you can get started today. Lastly, as I mentioned last episode, we have a new way to support the show in return for some extra benefits over on patreon.com/goaliehacks. If you guys are interested, head over to my page, and for just a few bucks, you can get exclusive perks and access to things such as private YouTube mentor streams, a personal shout out on the podcast, and a private group chat community where I give you guys full access into new tips, tricks, and my day-to-day activities that I'm doing. And then for the people that are more serious about their careers, I also have a tier where I offer 1v1 mentoring, where you get full access to my personal contact information for us to work together privately. So either way, every dollar counts. It helps me to continue to dedicate a lot of my time to this project that's now well underway, and allows me to give back to the community much more. So if you're interested in working a little closer with me and becoming a part of my inner circle, head over to my Patreon page included in the show notes. Without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. I know you guys are going to love the chat Zach and I had today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Goalie Hacks Podcast. I'm incredibly excited today to be joined by Zach Fucale, our first active professional goaltender, and what an honor it is to have him on as my first guest. I know I definitely say I'm always excited because I've always had so many great guests, and I plan on having many more. But today We come at you with truthfully the whole reason I started this show. The goal has always been to bring on winners, to get down to business with people actually going out there and doing it and having success at the highest levels of hockey. So if you want to know what it takes to win, if you want to know what it takes to play pro hockey at the highest levels and succeed, this episode is for you. Zach is incredibly decorated, standing out early in his career in the QMJHL up in Canada, playing Major Junior. He's won several league awards, a league championship, and a Memorial Cup championship as well. He then went on to lead the World Junior Tournament in 14-15, winning a gold medal with Team Canada. Has over 75 games in the AHL, 100-plus games in the ECHL, and has won 2 Spengler Cups with Team Canada since 2016, representing his country again, and now plays overseas in Europe in the Dell. Zach, how you doing, man? Thanks for coming on the show, dude.
Hey man, thanks for the intro. That's great. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
No, it's my pleasure. I'm glad that we could finally connect. I sort of saw your name floating around a little bit, and I decided to reach out to you. I was a little nervous because I didn't hear back from you right away, so I figured you're just blowing me off. So it's nice to connect, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I was traveling a lot in that time. Like you were saying, I had the time where I went to Germany for the end of the season. I didn't end up playing there, but um, I was kind of like on standby for a little while, and then we got word that the season was canceled, so I had to go home. So I was in the midst of like getting my stuff back from Orlando and going to Germany and then coming back. It was quite the transition. So that's why I didn't answer right away
Yeah, yeah,
to things like this. I knew we would get to it though, so that's
good.
why I didn't see a rush.
Yeah, yeah. Is that where you were when all this Corona stuff went down? You're over in Europe.
Yeah, I was in Munich. Yeah, that's where I had signed a contract for the rest of the year, and yeah, it happened pretty quickly. We knew it was kind of developing, and it was kind of
Hmm.
close down there to Munich, and then one day the GM called a team meeting and. Some guys had already heard from other teams, like from guys on other
Right.
teams, that the season was like canceled. So it
Hmm.
wasn't even put on suspension. You know what I mean, like the NHL or whatnot.
Yeah, yeah.
They just said, "Look, that's it. It's over." so they got our flights a few days later, a little team get together, and that was it.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's unfortunate for everybody. I mean, there's a lot of unleft hockey to be played, you know.
Yeah,
But I guess it is what it is. We all sort of got to roll with the punches a bit, right? It's sort of
yeah, that's it. I mean, that's it.
it reminds me of the lockout back in like 2012, 13, where you had it was a huge mess just because of guys going overseas, and this time sort of reminding me of all that went on. What are you doing right now in particular to sort of stay in the groove while you're at home? You up in Montreal in Canada?
Yeah, I live in Laval, just outside of Montreal, and stay in the groove of hockey. I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't been on the ice in a little while,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
I am, doing what I can, training a little bit here and there with the yoga sessions and stuff like that at home. But I have a puppy. She's just almost 5 months old, so she's keeping me outside a lot and running. So it's a lot of work to be outside with that little thing all day long. So it's good. It's good though.
Good, man. Good. Well,
It's really good.
well, let's.
Keeps me busy for sure. To the people that had puppies,
Oh my
they know
God,
what I'm
yeah.
talking about.
Oh, for sure, dude. Any baby animal is just literally like having a child. So I know exactly
Yeah,
what you mean, dude.
24/7
Oh
attention,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, well, let's not waste any more time just because we have a lot to go over, and I got a lot of stuff I want to chat with you about that I think everybody will be real interested in hearing. So
Beauty.
maybe you can just start off by talking about how you got into hockey and how you got into goaltending.
How I got into hockey? Well, when I was younger, I always liked watching games on TV and stuff. And at first, you know how it is when we first start playing, we just start skating pretty much. So
Hmm.
there's no goalies. There's no goalies that first year. So started player that first year, and then one day at the last game of the year, one of the goalies that had the equipment and stuff, he didn't really show up. So they were missing a goalie for that little last game. They called it an all-star game, but everybody was in it, right? And and so what happened was one of the my buddy's dads came up to me, and he knew I liked, Marty Brodeur and the equipment and his mask and stuff. And he said, "Hey Zach, you want to go in the room there and put on the equipment, and then you're gonna play the game as a goalie like you wanted." I said, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea." So I did it, and that from that one time, I went on that one time, and then the next year of hockey, I enrolled more as a goalie. So that's how it started for me.
Nice.
Just kind of one guy didn't show up. I said, "Oh yeah, I'll try it out," and then that was it. That's how I started.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's funny that you mentioned that because it happened similar for me where I started as a player and then one year it was like, "Oh yeah, who's gonna be goalie next week?" And then I was like, "Yeah, I'll try it out." And then literally from that, I was like the next week and I wanted to do it and the next week. And
There you
so
go.
I was I
There you
was
go.
I was pretty hooked right away. I think that's sort of how everybody gets started with it. They're not necessarily like thrown into it like deliberately. It's sort of like by chance.
Yeah, I always, liked it. I always
Yeah.
liked the gear and the helmet. I was a Marty Brodeur fan
Yeah. Yeah.
when I
Me
was
too.
a kid, and so that's I don't know. That's it. He asked me, I said, yeah. I mean, let's do it.
So what was sort of that moment for you where you knew you wanted to be a goalie for the rest of your life? When did that hit you?
um, I mean, I think I always deep down wanted to. You know how you're always asked, what are you going to be when you grow up and stuff, and I
Mhm.
always kept it quiet, the hockey thing. You'd answer something, more realistic in terms, but because we're always told, like, what about school? You got to go to school, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And but deep down, I always knew that, if I could play hockey and do this all the time, and that would be my ultimate goal.
Mhm.
And I guess that's kind of what worked out. I've always wanted to do that.
Yeah, yeah. There was, it's funny, my sort of moment came, I remember when I was playing, do you know a guy named David Brohl, actually?
Of course, yeah. I played with him in Laval
Yeah, yeah.
and St. John's. Yeah.
Yeah, so when we were young, when I literally had just picked up the gear, he had a super heavy shot when we were, like, still 6 years old or something like that, and I remember my dad being like, you're he scores on everybody in the league, but he's not gonna score on you today," and I'm like, "Yeah, he's not gonna score on me today," like and then I remember going out and just, I remember having so much fire in that game, and then I remember, like, taking so much pride in stopping him, and that was sort of the moment to me where I felt that power, like how much control you had over the game as a goaltender. Even if guys got shots, you were that last line of defense. So for
That's
me,
cool.
that was yeah. For me, that was sort of my moment. And everybody's a little different. So, but
Stopping David Brohl. That's good. That's good. I like
uh,
that.
yeah, I know it's cool, right? But so I want to fast forward, right to junior, your rookie season. You ended up winning Defensive Rookie of the Year, which is awesome. But how was that transition going from minor hockey to major junior and playing so many games at such a young age?
The transition went. I don't know if there was that much of a transition for me.
Yeah, yeah, no, it
I,
looks like that from
my
your numbers.
situation. Well, my situation. Well, no, I don't mean it that way. The way I mean it is it happened so quickly. I don't think
Right.
life didn't really give me time to adjust. I was just kind of like, all right, you're in it, let's go, boom. And
Yeah,
then I ended up playing a bunch of games
yeah.
that year. I played, I think, more games my rookie year at 16 than I did my 3 other years of junior.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
so I started as a backup with a guy. His name was Anthony Terenzio, and he had been playing in Halifax before, and he was real good goalie. And so it's unfortunate what happened. He had a head injury, kept him out for the rest of the year.
Mhm.
But in terms of adjustment for me, I had only played, I don't know, 2 games maybe before he got injured,
Right.
2 3 games if I'm um, not mistaken.
Mhm.
And then next thing you know, I'm starting every single game for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
from like game 8 of the year. So the adjustment period happened pretty quick.
Yeah,
It
yeah, yeah.
happened pretty quick, man, and I was thrown in there, and that's just how my junior career started. Pretty lucky because I got to play a bunch of games.
Yeah, yeah, no. I mean, I think that just even looking at my opportunities over the years, it's unfortunate the way it goes with goalies, but there's only 2 spots and typically one guy shares a big part of the load. So if we're everybody's always looking to get their shot, and that's sort of when things open up and you get an opportunity, that's your chance to shine. So obviously you excelled, and you're young, and I'm sure at the time, and I think we all know that your self-awareness is not as high typically then as probably it is now. But
Hmm.
for other goalies that are looking to make that transition to juniors, maybe it's even just junior A, what's a couple things that you focused on when you were young that in hindsight you helped you find your way so early?
That's great. It's a good tip to try and give to others. So for me, I was, I think, one of the luckiest guys to end up in Halifax with an organization like that,
Mhm.
because at the time they had, Eric Raymond, the goalie coach, would ended up being my goalie coach. We practiced, right. Even this summer we're gonna practice together in the summer. So it started when I was 16, and he's really been kind of a he's helped me build a system that works for me from the beginning of my junior career, and we've kept, um, refining it and making it a little bit better over time and over time.
Mhm.
But that started with me just really just listening to what he had to say to help me, and that to me is the biggest key. When you're a young goal, you want to learn, you have that drive, you have that, we're all sponges, right? Like, especially at that age. And to me, it's important to listen to people of experience, to hear about why things work and maybe why they don't work for you and
Yeah,
stuff like that. And that's a
exactly.
big key. And if you can get to that at a young age and being able to understand that process of, creating a system that works for you, and just adding to it over time and over time, and
Mhm.
listening to the coaches, and I think that's a good place to start,
Yeah.
to have a good goalie coach that you trust, like I did, and I still trust him. And that trust you build with a goalie coach, we all know that that's key to development.
Yeah, yeah. That's so crazy to me that you just said that literal word, you have to build a system. And it's because I've actually been preaching that on my page for quite some time, and I've actually gotten some backlash on that topic of it being too robotic, like goaltending being too robotic. But
Of course.
when you get to these higher levels, when you play major junior, how are you able to evaluate yourself, right? What areas can you and it allows you to sort of compartmentalize parts of your game, and you say, okay, maybe on this play I should be doing an RVH, reactive RVH, or maybe I should going right down. And I think that, like you said, building that system allows you to also, it's very black and white when things aren't going well, in terms of like, okay, these are the areas that I'm not doing well. These
100%.
and I just love that you said that. And for younger kids, what's sort of maybe something that they can start off with building their own system, if they don't have access to like a great goalie coach that they have a great relationship with like you did.
That's a great question. I think, hmm, if I had to choose one area of the game before you build a system,
Yeah.
um, it would be tracking. Um, yeah, because that would be the foundational piece. Like, you can have the best skating ability, you can have the best system. Let's say we keep using this word. Let's say we just stay in that mold.
Positioning wise, you're saying.
Yeah, let's say you have every tool, but your tracking is not up to par in terms of your level you're at. I believe you're gonna have issues. So that's a foundational piece that if you can get to that early, well, I think you're ahead of the curve. I don't know if you agree with that, but
No, I agree for sure.
that would be one thing for me, because I know it's foundational for me. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, uh, I know it's helped me a ton.
So in terms of the way you approach the idea of tracking. Maybe you can give us a little more insight into how you view the topic, maybe what you do with your coach, maybe what you guys did early on to help give you that foundation exactly.
Well, as you grow older, you like you said, your self awareness gets higher, and you kind of realize things in terms of how your body works, how your body moves, and certain shots that come at you. But tracking, very, very simply, really, the most basic way of putting it, just bringing your body toward the puck and not away from the puck,
Mhm.
using your eyes and your head, your chin. You've heard about that,
Yeah.
and it sounds really precise and really obtuse, like you got to put your chin, or you know what I mean,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
saying it looks robotic, but that's because it works that way. If you explain it that way and you
Yeah.
work it that way, then it works well, and bringing your body towards the puck will just it's just
Yeah.
going to eliminate so many errors, so many mistakes you may make along the way, if I can say it that way in my, you know what I mean.
No, no, for sure. I know exactly what you mean. I think maybe the best way to describe what you just explained is efficiency, right?
Yeah,
And efficiency in our eyes and our head and everything following those pucks in properly.
yeah,
And it's something that I discussed with on an earlier episode with IQ goalie about trajectory and stuff like that. So I think people don't realize the amount of detail that goes into the game as you get to like the levels that you're at, and then in pro hockey anywhere, just being able to work that efficiency. And the little things matter, because when the pucks are coming that much quicker and that much harder, those split seconds are literally everything. And I don't think that people pay enough attention to those. But
yeah.
you know, the following year, you guys ended up winning the league and then the Memorial Cup as well. So congratulations on those accolades. But
Thanks. That's a long
did you
time
did
ago,
you
but
win?
thanks.
No, they matter and they stay with you your whole career. Nobody can take that away from
It's
you. And you're in
true.
a very small club of people that have an opportunity not to just get there, but to win it. So, I commend you for that. Did you win a lot of league championships when you were young, or was that sort of your first one?
No, actually, we didn't. We didn't. I remember winning one tournament in Pee Wee that was like pretty big highlight for me in out in Jonquière, Quebec. To the people that know where that is,
Yeah.
um, close to Chicoutimi and in the Saguenay region,
Right.
and that was a big highlight for me because before we hadn't won it, in terms of tournaments, because it's not like league. There's not like a Stanley Cup. You'll do the regional,
Right. Right.
championship and stuff. You know what I mean? And yeah, that was that one tournament that I remember vividly. Winning in Pee Wee, and then after that, it was
Hmm.
the QMJHL championship.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So that year, what do you think contributed to so much success? Obviously, the year before, you very standoutish as a rookie. You got a lot of experience, but what are some things that year that you realized you needed to do in order to get there and then win when you got there?
Um. Well, when you're in it, you don't stop and think about those things. But
For sure.
looking back, I believe that the structure my goalie coach had imposed on me was a big key in my opinion. We had done so much repetition on our little things here and there that once we had played, I think, 80 games in the total of the year. Uh, Once the Memorial Cup came, I think he just wanted me to eliminate any stress and any, like, you know, little anxieties we might have here and there.
Hmm.
And he just wanted me to enjoy myself and just have fun because he knew that we had done so much of that, the repetition over and over, and
Right.
that structure, and we had kind of like our rules, like our rules of engagement here and there. And so I was just following the rules of engagement that we had set, and then that just, the game just went well after that.
Hmm.
I remember there was a game where in Quebec I had given up a couple bad goals, a couple tough goals, and they were coming, with a lot of momentum.
Hmm.
Momentum, And he, in between periods, he came to see me. He said, "Look, man," he goes, "is your family good?" Like, "Yeah, my family's good. My family's here. They come to support you. Your sisters, they're all good. Yeah, everything's good. You got lots of friends." Like, "Yeah, yeah, I got friends." So he goes, "So what do you got to worry about, dude? Like,
Mhm.
just relax. Just go have fun and play.
Mhm.
Just go have fun, man. And the rest, well, doesn't matter. The rest doesn't matter." But obviously, it was a super high pressure situation at that point.
No
Okay,
kidding,
but
dude.
what he did was he just kind of like took it away from my head, and he kind of distracted me and brought me back to just thinking about, I'm gonna have some fun and think about those like rules of engagement that we had, and
Right.
then the rest is history. It just went well. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. No, I just want to talk on an idea there. You said it sort of just comes and goes, and you guys said that you had structure, and I think that that relates to the fact that when you got to those games, you just had you had built flow into your game. You had worked on that repetition so many times that you didn't need to think about it. And then typically when we get to those games, we're always there's some of that anxiety that overcomes us when realistically you have everything inside you that you need. So maybe for some people, like, because obviously getting anxiety from big games is huge, and a lot of people ask me how I deal with it. But what's something that exactly that you use mentally, physically, maybe some centering anchor techniques, I don't know, that help you overcome the fear of failing in big games?
Um, well, I've been lucky. I'm a lucky guy. I was put into a lot of these situations,
Right.
a lot of big games. I'm real lucky, and I find now what I use the most is just repeating certain things inside my head,
Right.
and
Right.
and that will just eliminate other things. And then over time, once you keep doing it, they just everything else kind of melts away,
Yeah.
And breathing has become real big for me, breathing techniques and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, and just repeating. I know now I just use that breathe and focus. I just breathe in, and then focus on, whatever
Right.
I'm doing, and over and over and over. And then once 5 minutes of you doing it, your brain kind of like forgets everything else
Yeah.
around it. So at
Yeah.
first you might think, okay, this isn't working, but you keep doing it, and next thing you know, you're flowing pretty good, So
Hmm. No, I agree. I just released a video on my page around positive self-talk and how powerful it can be.
yep.
And I think that people don't realize that they have a lot more control over the thoughts that go through their mind than they think.
Hmm.
And it's having that ability, like you said, those centering techniques, some phrases or whatever you say to yourself that sort of flood your brain with that positivity, plant those seeds. And then when you make that next save, it all sort of comes to fruition. It's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy because your mind is in the right place and your body sort of follows there, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. And to have those words, like, you can also just repeat your system.
yeah.
If you have, like, I talked about rules of engagement, and system. You use that word too. It seems like you like that a lot. Like, so if you know like really what your system is and what works for you, like, why
Mhm.
would you repeat anything else in your head? If that works, you were saying people were saying it was too robotic, but in as goalies, all we have to do is just get the job done for a team. So
Yeah.
if it means being robotic to stop a certain percentage of pucks over the
Yes.
season, I'm gonna do that, dude.
100%,
like,
man. That's the
like
exact same way
I
I
don't
think about it
care.
too.
I don't care about doing the same thing 175 times during the game. If that's what works, that's what works,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, yeah,
You know
no.
what I mean?
100% I know what you mean, and I think that, like you said, building a system not just around like your game on the ice, but like your mental game, even your practices during the week, your off ice training, your pregame routine. Because when you get to
100%.
those big
Yep.
challenges, and I had an opportunity to play in the RBC tournament, and so I sort of know what it's like to be on that
Yeah.
stage.
Oh
And when
yeah.
you're there, the thing that gives you confidence, the thing that helps you sort of deal with all that pressure is just relying on the systems that you've developed throughout the season. And you sort of say, I know that if I do these things, it's going to put me in a good place. And
Yes.
that sort of
Exactly.
helps eliminate all the anxiety. So next year, you were named the top goaltender in the Q, which is also an incredible feat to accomplish. But I want to dive a bit into what went into getting there, both mentally and physically, because I think people oftentimes don't know the blood, the sweat, the tears it takes every day of a season to win an award like that. So was that your goal going into that season, or did you have your eyes on that prize from day one?
To have the goal of, sorry.
Of being the top goaltender in the league. When you went into the season, the first day of camp, you're like, I'm going to be number one in the league.
Oh yeah, no, I that wasn't a goal of mine. No,
Right. So at what point in the season did that you started to realize that you could accomplish that?
I didn't even know. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't. I'm serious. Like, I'm dead serious. When when I was in junior, I was, and I still am. Like, I was so interested in wanting to know what my goalie coach,
Yeah.
we were doing together, to get better and stuff. We had such a good system together to work, on, either video or watching other goalies, watching NHL
Yeah.
goalies, watching, other games, preparing in practice, before practice, goalie skates. I was so into it, and also I didn't really have time.
Mhm.
I didn't have time for thinking about those things. I was playing a lot of games, so like I said, I was lucky in that respect,
Yeah.
because that kind of helped me, uh, without me knowing. You know, I didn't even know that this was a thing, because I was just, submerged with, I gotta play these games.
Yep.
Like, I gotta.
You get lost in that process, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think this is where I got lucky, where I didn't have, that chance to stop and think about it, because I was just in it.
Yeah.
That's what I loved about the Mooseheads. It was just such a great experience. Halifax is just a great place. I live in a great billet.
Mhm.
The whole time for me, it was just great. It was just a great time for me.
Yeah, no. I love what you said about it's like, and I always say this to people too. Um, just because the year that I played in the BCHL, we went to an RBC, like I won the goalie of the year award, and people were like, "Well, how'd you do that?" But you're just it's all about focusing on that process. If you're so focused on every little detail, tweaking your system, right? Stopping all the ones you should and then some you shouldn't, then when you're totally submerged into that process, it's just you're not thinking about the end result. You're not getting too far ahead of yourself. And that's where the real secret lies, is like focusing on one shot at a time, one detail at a time, one day. And then over the course of the year, if you can manage to sort of string together enough of that, right? If you submerge yourself in the
Yep,
process enough, you
yep.
sort of can.
Then you just got rhythm, and you just
Yes.
go.
Yeah. So what was sort of the hardest part about that year? Working toward getting that award, was it the training you did, the amount of games you played? How many shots, you faced over the course of the year? What was the hardest part?
Hardest part. Um, well, that's something I haven't sat down and think about,
Yeah, yeah.
because there's a lot of hard parts.
For sure.
Um,
What sort of
because
sticks out to you?
junior, I can't say, man.
Okay.
I can't say that the exact thing that was the hardest part for me.
Well, that year,
Um,
in terms of your team quality, were you guys pretty deep in terms of a team, or were you seeing a lot of shots and kind of carrying a lot of the load, being sort of that unsung hero?
so the year we won, I didn't get as many shots as I did the year before.
Right.
Um, when we won, that was the challenge for me, was to face little shots.
Yeah.
That was the challenge. So there were some games, man, where we lost, or I had a tough game and we still won, or stuff like that, where I wasn't getting many shots. And okay, so now that we talk about it, now that was the challenge. Now, no, but that's good, because I
Yep.
couldn't pinpoint it. But that was my hardest challenge, was to face less shots.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would get 15, or 19,
Game
or
readiness.
one game. Yeah, man, that's super hard, and you can't prepare for that.
Yep.
You can't. There's no training method or anything like that, or mental, trick to prepare you for being on a 5-on-3, and then one period later having a lot of work.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
there's nothing that can really prepare you for that except living it. You go through it and you learn about yourself. Okay, well, this didn't work today, obviously. And so that was my challenge, was to face a little bit less shots and
Mhm.
come up with ways to trigger myself in a good way to be ready for that. But I do remember I had some tough games where I didn't have many shots, and then boom, next thing you know, I gave up 4, 5, 6 goals, and it's a terrible game. But you didn't get many shots. How come this happens? Everybody looks, well, you only
Oh,
got
yeah, all the time.
18 shots. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so that's a challenge that you have to live through, and look inside to be able to get better.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I've gone through this too in terms of like, cause we all like, I love getting like a ton of shots. You just like, you get lost in that process. You get in such a rhythm. So maybe for you, what's something that you do when you give up a goal,
For
when you're
sure.
kind of cold,
For sure.
in order to sort of keep yourself on track and make sure that you don't let things spiral out of control? Because obviously, I'm sure you've been in some situations like that relatively often.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There has been situations where you think it gets out of control, but there's always a way to bring yourself back. And to me, it's obviously different for everyone. But to me, it comes back to what I was saying earlier. That's part of my system that I believe in now. It's repetition of my keywords in my system,
Right,
and
right,
and breathing.
right.
That's it. That's really it. It's not that much more complicated than that.
Hmm.
For me, it's really breathing and really focusing on my system.
Hmm.
And once I do it for a while, then it comes back.
Hmm. No, that's exactly what I do. I sort of just, if I give up a softie or something, you just rely on that routine, that system that sort of keeps your mind, going down the right road. So
Yeah.
the following
Yeah.
year, you play World Jays with Team Canada. You're named the goaltender of the tournament, and you guys take home the gold medal for Team Canada. How did that feel to overcome something like that and accomplish that?
Oh man, that tournament was wild. It's one of the coolest experiences anybody can live. Man, the World Juniors with Team Canada in Canada.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding, eh?
The year before we were in Sweden, we finished fourth at the World Juniors, um, and then the next year we won it. Man, it's tough to describe and to let people know how it was.
Yeah.
Being in Toronto when we win it like that, it was wild. The pressure was high. It was great. It was just great. The game was amazing. Like, we were up 4-1, 4-0, 5-1 at some point. And then, they scored 3 power play goals like you were talking about.
Yeah.
You thought things were getting out of control. And next thing you know, it's 5-4 and the second period ends, thankfully.
Mhm.
And then we shut them out in the third. But geez, man, that was such a thrill from A to Z.
Mhm.
Hockey Canada does such a good job at kind of isolating the team to eliminate distractions and go right in the tournament. But man, that's something I'll remember my whole life, man. It was a pretty
No
dope
kidding,
experience.
man. Um, I just want to rewind a little bit, now that we're sort of here, I want to get your analysis on some big picture stuff, right? Because like you say, you don't really realize it what's going on, but fortunately, it's all in hindsight now, and that's what we're trying to extract here, right? So, what are some things you either found out about yourself or learned along the way that were some of the biggest things that helped you grow into someone worth winning that award and winning a gold medal?
Um, what made me worth?
Because I think we always, when we start out, like, we all have a clean slate at 16, right? So,
Yep.
what were some of the things that mentally or physically were big key factors into your development, I guess is the right way to put it, that helped you grow into somebody being capable of handling a challenge that big and then overcoming it?
Oh, okay. That's good. So for me, it was when I first cut in at 16. It was just that willingness to learn and listen.
Mhm.
I had a lot of drive. I had a lot of drive to just listen. I wasn't that strong of a kid. I was pretty lanky of a guy, not very,
Mm-hmm.
athletically like super strong. I wasn't a power lifter, and then I think I came in at 16 at 6 foot, 155 pounds. I was, but at least to me mentally, I wanted to learn, and then after that. I really bought into what my goalie coach was saying.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. That kind of became my little religion inside, where I just believed in that. And then I was just did it over and over and over. And then you fast forward a couple of years, and I kept working at it, and then I looked back and I made such progress, and then after that, that just kind of fueled my confidence a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
From starting at that point at 16 and seeing how I've developed by believing in what he was saying. I was like, well, that belief is a good thing. That's I feel great with this, so
Mm-hmm.
I should just keep learning, keep building, keep listening to this goalie coach because it's worked. So
Yeah.
because it worked, it just gave me that belief inside and gave me confidence, and it was just kind of like a snowball effect after that. um, Obviously, when I turned pro, there were some tough times, real tough times.
Yeah. I think we
Um,
all go through that.
there was some really, really, really hard times mentally, but then that kind of
Yes.
pushed me to go back to the system that I used at 17, and now I turn around and I'm 22 years old,
Mm-hmm.
or 23 or 24 now,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I'm using principles that I used so long ago that I kind of went away from,
Yeah.
So you were saying what made me to go back to your question, what made me what were the things I learned that brought that. The whole process kind of gave me that confidence, that
Yes.
believing in it helped me believe in everything else in the hockey world, in my hockey world,
Yeah. Yeah.
so then that kind of fueled it. It just fueled it that way.
Mm-hmm. Um, you know,
That makes sense. I
no,
know I talked for a while
a
there,
hundred
but
percent, it makes sense. I actually, it's funny you mentioned that because when I went pro too, I sort of was lost as well. And when I started finding success after getting diced around my first year by a bunch of squads, you sort of go back to those things that made you successful back then.
mm,
And when I really got back to my roots, and depending on my pregame routine, the systems I had developed forever, like those details matter more than ever, I think, as you grow up. Um, so, building a
eh,
system when you're young, when you sort of find that formula, like don't change a thing. Maybe tinker here and there, like you said, try things and maybe helps. But I think people go wrong when they try to change things too much. And I think that the pro game, there's a lot of distractions when it comes to professional hockey, just because it's so business oriented, and it takes away from us focusing on the things that really got us where we are. So maybe we'll lead into that a bit. You go pro, you start in the American League. What was sort of your expectations of what you thought pro was going to be like versus when you got there and had to face American League shooters night in and out?
um, that's so for me
Yeah,
it was a hard transition. Um, sorry, no, sorry. It wasn't a hard transition. I had really good roommates, and the
yeah,
Montreal Canadiens, man, that was kind of my dream in the AHL when I came in that organization, facing AHL shooters. It's intimidating at first. It's intimidating. Uh, but then I realized that once you can play with them, once you realize that you kind of stop
yeah,
idolizing them and putting them on a pedestal, once you realize you can play, then you're right back to what you were before. You start believing in those things that bring you success, and you come back to it. And you when you stop putting people on a pedestal like that, you just play, and then you're at that same level, and then you go from there. So AHL is a
yeah,
nice
for sure.
challenge, man. It's such a great league, and I was lucky enough to play in there, and yeah, I learned a lot by playing there because there's some big names that have played in the NHL and stuff. So I learned a lot there.
Yeah, yeah. So what was your biggest adjustment you think after you went pro, that you need to in terms of your game in order to get the job done? Because obviously there's a lot of turnover in pro across the globe. It's just the way it is now. It's so competitive. So for you, what was probably the biggest adjustment you needed to make, either physically or mentally, in order to be able to compete at that level?
Um, I think it was just about timing. The biggest adjustment as a
Yeah.
goalie is probably timing, in my opinion, because the tools are probably all there. If you're chosen to be on a team in the ECHL and in the AHL and the
Yeah.
NHL, the tools are there. Like it's like the foundation is there. So it's probably not a physical thing. It's just about you putting it all together in terms of timing and
Hmm.
mental, like repetition. And I think that's what it is. That's the biggest adjustment that I focused on, was to just get my timing right. And
Yeah.
it's a hard challenge though. It's a hard challenge if sometimes when you're a backup,
Oh, for sure.
you don't play for a while, and so
Yeah.
that's another challenge goalies face. And that's another thing we can talk about. But playing a lot, which I had the chance to my first year pro in the AHL, was just getting that timing there and learning again, just absorbing information from the older guys, from the new goalie coaches you have. And that's an adjustment. You need to be able to be a fast learner. 100%. You have to be able to learn things quickly, because if not, like you said, there's such a high turnover rate that
Yeah.
you'll just fall behind and they'll find somebody else. So
Yep.
you
Here's the
you
reality.
need, yeah, unfortunately, but that's the reality of it. So you got to be able to learn quick, and play hard, and listen and learn quick.
Yeah. So you talk about all these guys, that you sort of listen and you were just sort of a sponge. Out of all of the successful goalies, including yourself, what sort of separates regular goalies from elite goaltenders, capable of playing at the highest levels like that? What's their mentality, approach? Maybe something you learned from them. Like you said, you're a sponge that sort of helped you get acclimated.
Yeah. So as a young player, that's an important thing to be willing to learn and work on your game. But then what separates, for your question, what separates the ones that are good to the elite ones, in the NHL, in my opinion, I guess we'll all have a different look at this.
Hmm.
Okay. But in my opinion, it would be, people will say consistency. That's what people will say.
Hmm.
And that's right, because the guys that are in the NHL, everyone's good. Even in the AHL,
Yeah.
most of them will probably be able to play in the NHL. But who can actually give you those results all year long for 60 games?
Right.
Those will be the elite guys.
Yeah.
And how to get there, in my opinion, is you look at these guys, and then we'll go back to the word system. They probably have a system they trust so much that they just keep doing it over and
Yeah.
over, and then that's what gives them results.
Yeah.
I think of uh, this is a long time ago. I don't know if your viewers are too young for Jean-Sébastien Giguère, but
No, we
his
got a
game
good
was,
mix.
there you go. But they were so his game was so simple,
Yeah.
right? And he would use the block, like Francois Allaire. He
Right.
was use the block, and then he's robotic, but man, he won it. He did it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because he believes in that. And whatever the system is, I'm not saying the block is the only way to go. I'm just saying he did it, and he did it with consistency because of that belief he had in his system.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what separates the elite guys, in my opinion. Um, Not being, bogged down or distracted by, new techniques here and there, by
Yeah.
new
The
coaches,
shiny
do this,
object
do that.
syndrome, right?
There you go, because we know how many there are around us nowadays.
For
So
sure.
just stick with what works for you, and I think the elite guys stick with what works for them
Yeah.
over and over.
Right. So I'm just curious what you think, now having played pro for several years and been through the systems, been through the grind. If you could go back and change one thing, what would that be, either mentally or physically, to give you a better chance of succeeding from day one in pro?
Oh, man, I don't know what I would change, but I kind of wish it went down different.
Oh yeah, I think we
uh,
we all do a little
I
bit
don't
if
regret,
it doesn't end up in the
right?
NHL, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. We all have that story, right?
Yeah.
But no, man, I don't regret anything.
Yeah.
That's the great part. I've had some dark times in my pro career in
Hmm.
my 5 years so far. But what I would change in myself would maybe be a little stubbornness early on,
Hmm.
because I was talking about, you know, not always changing, like
And you listen
trusting
to
that
too many
system.
people, probably,
I
right?
believed, I believe that I bought into too many different things, and that caused me to just go away from what worked for me, you know.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just I didn't believe hard enough in my system at that time
Hmm.
for me to have the success I was capable of having, because I believe in myself, but maybe at the time that it was happening, maybe I was missing that, a little bit.
Right.
And maybe that's a factor. Maybe that's a factor.
So would you say that the biggest shift you made over the years is just because I think it's very easy for that to happen. You're a young guy, you're in the American League, you sort of have
Yes,
that
and then
that
there's guys with experience, and you want
yes.
to listen, and you want to please the new management, and you want
Yeah.
to please your teams, your coaches, your
Yeah.
this, your that. So you listen, but but then after that, you kind of lose yourself a little bit,
Yes.
and sometimes that can hurt you more,
Yeah,
right?
no, I agree, and that's sort of why I say I don't think people realize the number of layers and the distractions that are a part of pro hockey, and just like you said, it's huge, right? Like you got there for a reason, and I think that it's easy to question yourself when you see so much movement left, right, up, down, and you're trying to please so many people. You know, you're looking for some direction at the end
Yeah,
of
you're
the
you're you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
day.
There's like you can get lost at every corner, man. You
No, yeah,
can. You really can.
yeah,
But to answer your question again, um, my the biggest thing I learned, the biggest adjustment I would have had to make was to not just believe in myself, because it's easy to say that,
yeah,
and I don't think that's the biggest thing, because if you believe in yourself so much, it's not going to make you successful, in my opinion.
yeah.
It's you need to believe in a system, something, because it's not
Proven,
about you. Yeah, it's because it's not about you as a goalie. It's about your game.
yes,
It's how you play the game that actually matters. It's not about like, I believe I'm gonna stop the puck. Oh, okay, well
and then it
that's good.
goes
Well,
in.
how are you gonna do it? How are you gonna do it? Yeah, exactly. And then it goes in. It's how you get to that.
Yeah.
It's the system that matters, because
Mhm.
the system is what you actually use to play the game,
Yeah. Yeah.
in my opinion.
No, and
All
it's
these things are a factor, and they all coexist somehow. They all work together. But uh, man, I'm telling you, once maybe I'll say about 2 years ago, when I really committed myself to working with a system that works for me, I've seen results. And this season, I've had probably the best numbers I've had in a long time.
mhm,
And I didn't have a goalie coach in the East Coast, in Orlando. Uh, but yeah, I was pretty stubborn in the way I wanted to play the game in terms of my system, and
mhm.
that to me is what I believe drove results.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree, I totally agree, man. It's just it's a lot of my own personal memories. Like you'd be surprised. You say these things are your opinion, but these things come up so often with so many pro guys. So definitely, everybody listening back to this, pay attention because we're all sort of trying to find our way, and it's a lot of ups and downs. But when you sort of find that formula that works for you, I wouldn't get too crazy with changing things, right? So. Um, playing on a national stage again with Team Canada the last few years, winning 2 Spengler Cups, having gone through the World Junior Championship, did the international stage sort of feel familiar when you got there, or was it a much different look and feel than your first tour?
The Spengler Cup is much different than the World Juniors. The World Juniors is countries. It's kind of, well, it's not the same feel. The
Yeah.
World Juniors
Yeah.
is awesome. You're playing against Russia. You're playing against Sweden. You're playing against the best players of each country.
Hmm.
But the Spengler Cup, it's still club teams,
Yeah.
except for um, Team Canada, which is a mix of Canadian guys in Europe and a couple from here. You're still playing club teams, but that's what kind of makes it cool because you're playing in different against different leagues. So
Yeah.
at the Spengler, I was with Team Canada, but I played against a Finnish team, Finnish Elite League. There was the German league, the Dell. There was KHL. There was the National League, which is the Swiss league. So there was a Czech league. So you touch all these different corners of the world and different styles and different teams. That's what kind of makes it cool
Yeah.
in terms of international play on the big ice and stuff. I love the Spengler Cup, man. It's the coolest thing. Lucky to be, called for that 3 times already.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, that thing that's a really great tournament up in the Alps.
So what do you think? Obviously, like it's sort of the Champions League almost of like hockey, right? On the IIHS
Similar,
stage.
yeah,
Um,
similar. But I don't think it's a IIHF tournament. It's because it's an
oh, I
invitational.
see. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I
It's
got it.
not the proper IIHF
Um,
thing because it's an invitational, so
right,
it could be
right.
different every year.
So in terms of the guys that you played, did playing those guys wake you up to maybe some things you didn't see before, either the goalies or players? Obviously, because I'm sure the style of hockey is just so different everywhere, right? Like even just Canada, the United States, hockey's way
Yep.
different. So
It is different. It is different. To me, the biggest difference would just be that the ice. For goalies, if we're just talking goalies,
yeah,
the small ice makes a difference when you play. Things are coming at you much quicker when you're over there in Europe. You play on the Olympic size. There's that extra space. There's that half a second where you get to analyze a little bit more. The play kind of seems to develop in front of you. I see that as being one of the biggest differences.
yeah,
But in terms of other players and styles, like it's cool. It's exciting to see the different styles. When you play against a KHL team and you're successful, that kind of gives you confidence too.
hmm,
Like
hmm.
these are some good hockey leagues, man. Like people don't realize that the Finnish league, the Dell, like this is freaking unreal hockey.
Oh
So
yeah, they're basically
it's
ex NHL, AHL guys in all those leagues.
yeah, so it's really fun to be a part of, and gave me gave me some confidence to be there, and it's just great experience. Great experience
Yeah,
in terms of knowing yourself and knowing what you're capable of. It's a good experience.
yeah, seeing where you stack up on that
Yeah,
that sort of
exactly.
international
Yeah,
stage. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Well said.
Well, obviously we talk about a lot about, how much you've won, but I think that's something winning goalies know how to do is bounce back, right? And not let those games define them, not, their reputation and who they really are, having that self-awareness. And I always like to ask great goalies, this question because we all go through slumps. It's inevitable. And maybe you could shed some light on what exactly, you do when you're not playing as well as of recent, or you go into some slumps, short or long,
Yeah,
and stuff like that, because
yeah,
obviously you touched on your pro, you said you had a bit of a tough go and stuff like that, so
yeah.
how were you able to grind out of that?
Um, so to me, there's two things. So there's like actual like hockey physical side of it, and then there's the mental, like how do you deal with it mentally.
Yeah,
Um, One of the ways I found was good was to just put things in a different perspective because when you're in it, it's so easy to look at the worst possible scenario, like
for sure, and your mind
you
goes
know
there
you
often.
exactly, but everybody goes through that. So you kind of have to step back, give yourself a couple of days, and you know and and just give yourself a little perspective. Like there are way worse things. Like the situation we're in right now with cities being on lockdown gives you perspective.
Yeah,
There are worse things in life than a hockey game. There are, like that's what we live for.
yeah,
That's what we live for. We love to win, we hate to lose, okay, all that stuff. But that's not it. Like there's bigger things. There's a dinner with your family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So once you realize that you're not the center of the universe, and you're just a guy trying to play hockey, or a girl trying to play hockey and enjoy
Mhm.
himself, that kind of takes away that extra stress that you have. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? We're
100%.
just trying to play the game. We're all trying to enjoy ourselves and be the best we can. And that's that's good. That's good. So when we're going in a slump, you got to snap out of it, because you got to snap yourself out of it. Like, like we just got to relax. Like,
Yeah.
what am I so stressed out about? That's a good question to ask yourself. I've asked myself that a lot, and there's many ways you can snap out of it, but that
Yeah.
mentally would be kind of one of the obstacles to get over. Okay,
Yeah.
but physically for me, what I like to do to get back into my game, let's say I see there's something wrong, is just get tons of shots. Like, I'll just have a big pile of pucks in this in like top circle right in the middle, and just have a guy just shoot at a certain area and then
Yeah.
go over and over and over and over. And then you do that for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 days.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you took an extra 500-600 shots, and then your tracking's much better, and then your body's moving much better. So
Yeah.
physically, to me, would be getting a tons of shots. I know I do that periodically throughout the year
Mhm.
to stay sharp. I kind of call it like, in French. There's an expression like mettre les pendules à l'heure. I don't even know if that's a great expression, but I've heard that somewhere. And what it means is, it's like, put the right time on the clock. Like,
Right.
to put it back to precise time.
Right. Right. Got
And
it.
just getting a ton of shots, for me, that helps me. So
Yeah.
maybe it's different for someone, but that's what I do when I'm feeling kind of off, had a couple days off or whatever.
Yeah.
Hey, let's line up some pucks in the slot here, and let's throw it at my glove until I catch
Yeah.
40, and
Yeah.
then we'll go to the next spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that kind of helps me.
That's funny that you do that.
Have you done that? Have you done that too? Or
Yeah, that's like I do something very similar, but what I'll do is I sort of whenever I'm slumping, I sort of like make the game a little harder on myself because I find that when I'm slumping, it's because I'm sort of getting behind the game. And in order to get ahead of it, we need to sort of work the areas that make us the most comfortable. So what I'll do is I actually get somebody to line up right below the hash marks. And like you did, I'll do tracking, but I'll likely go like 2 for 10 or 3 for 10, right? But what happens is my eyes will start getting used to that proximity
yes, yes, yes,
and
yes.
and the
That's good. I like
tracking
that.
and the tracking and everything. And then what happens is once I go like 8 for 10, then I'll bring the shooter in like a half a foot closer and then I'll go like 3 or 4 for 10 again. And
Yeah, I
so
like that. I like that a
yeah,
lot. And there's value in getting scored on, man.
for
There
sure.
is huge value, because in in uh, in in practice, when you realize that it doesn't matter that you get scored, it's so much better.
Right. Yeah.
It's so much better, because then you could really work on your system and work on how you get there. And then next thing you know, 4 or 5 days down the road of solid work, you're actually stopping them
Yep.
and not worried about the rest. So
Yeah.
I like that drill where you're probably just like, okay, like probably just getting fired up, and then
Oh, yeah.
once that's done, then actually you forget about it and you move on, because you
Yep.
just kind of like worked on that speed.
Yeah.
That's sick. That's a great drill.
No, thank you. Like I said, there aren't, I'm what I'm finding from talking to some of the elite minds is there aren't many differences. There's a lot of commonalities there. Um, but like you said, like, and I always say this too in terms of embracing that process. Like once you realize and you have that perspective that shots in practice, they matter. Like we want to play sort of like we would in a game, but if we're going out there deliberately working on a feeling, we're trying to develop that feeling that we can rely on that system. That feeling is a part of the systems that we're talking about, right?
Yep,
And when we
for
go
sure.
out to practice, we want to build that feeling. It's like an actor looking in the mirror and like practicing their smile. You want to be able to feel that perfect smile that you have without actually going to look in the mirror, right? And
Yep,
so
100%.
that's sort of the way I think about it when it comes to goaltending, right? And once you sort of embrace that process, once you have the macro picture in mind, then you can sort of get to where you're going slowly and every day tinker a little bit, right?
Mhm.
Buffer out that feeling. So dude, unreal interview, man. Unreal talk here, discussion. Do you have any last words of advice for anybody listening that you feel passionate about?
Yeah, I don't have any advice, but if you have questions, you can just ask me. Like,
Yeah,
just send me a message on Instagram. Like, lately I've been answering a lot of questions about the Lefebvre gear since I was trying those out and I got those in Germany.
yeah,
If you have any questions about the new gear, don't hesitate at all. I'm gonna answer everything. And anything else, man, if you want me back on the show in a little bit, no
for
problem.
sure, dude.
Uh,
100%.
Man, I'm an open-minded guy. Just ask me a question, man. If
Yeah,
I like goaltending. I like to
yeah.
play hockey. So
And that's what we are
that's
on the
it.
show. We're a little nerdy about it, but that's we all love it.
That's
We have a
fine.
little bit of fun too. So
That's fine. We're all different, bro. We're all different.
yeah, 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 yeah. So, anyways, dude, honestly, man, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I know people are gonna love this one. There's so many. This is why I want to start trying to bring on a lot of more active goaltenders. It's sort of hard, obviously, with NHL regulations and the PR teams and all this stuff. It's sort of hard to work around, but today is literally the stuff I've been dying to talk about with a guy that's actually done it, because as we sort of found out, there are a lot of commonalities there that sort of exist.
It's
Um,
very simple. There's
yeah,
there's a, there's a lot of simplicity in the more you go up, the more it gets simple, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah, and sort of buffing out those systems. So I'm really glad we touched on physical, mental systems, and just developing that at a young age. Can you just maybe let my audience know where they can get in touch with you online, either Instagram or whatever you want to shout out?
Yeah, you can go on Instagram. That's probably where it's best for me. And Zach underscore Fucale, and that's it. That's all. I've got nothing else to say, man. I talk a lot. People know that. They joke about it, and I I did a bunch of that on this show. So I hope
Yeah.
people, even just one person, if they got something good out of it, that's good with me.
Plenty of people will. I know what the community is looking for, and today we hit a home run on it. So, anyways, guys, go check out Zach Fucale on Instagram. He's had an incredible amount of success, both on the international and major junior and pro hockey stages. Definitely give this episode a listen back. Take notes if you didn't, because there's an incredible amount of knowledge there for everyone. So if you want to be a pro, listen to what the pros do. If you want to be a winner, listen to what winners do, and get on a road to massive success today. So maybe somewhere down the road, we'll have you back on the show, man. Like I said,
Beauty.
it's a bit of we like to have fun with it, but I think that a lot of goalies like to get down to the nitty gritty, get a little nerdy about it, figure out what's going to help them win and move their career forward. So I'd love to have you on the show down the road, man, if that's something you're interested in.
Beauty. No problem. See you around.
All right, man. Well, I'm grateful for you coming on, Zach. Take care. We'll chat soon, man.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode, guys. If you liked what you heard today, make sure to hit that subscribe button, as we have tons of amazing guests lined up already to come onto the show the next few months. Make sure to tune in next week and every Tuesday from now on at 8 a.m. as we have Leonard Zykowski, the pioneer and father of sports psychology in North America, coming on the show. We talk about his work with the Golden State Warriors, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and some of the most elite athletes in the world. I'm really excited for you guys to hear this one. You won't be disappointed, so make sure to tune back next week. Without further ado, here are the giveaway details for the NeuroTracker X subscriptions we're giving away. To enter the giveaway, simply go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. Once you leave a review of the podcast, take a screenshot of it and either email it to goaliehacks@gmail.com or DM me on Instagram with your screenshot and your full name. If you guys are also interested in getting started with the product, they are currently offering subscriptions for cheaper than what the price will be when the product fully launches. So if you guys want to get started at a cheaper price before the product goes fully live, hit me up on Instagram. Get excited, guys. Great things ahead. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and I'll see you next week.